Gentlemen, I love this movie. You guys, I saw it again last night, by the way. They had a thing at Twitter where we had to see it again. And it was just like, it was so magical. And I think it's because I watched the original, I went to the premiere, watched the original again, and then went to that.
Really?
Thing.
Wow.
Yeah, because
I should interview you now.
No.
I want to know how she feels.
Because the scenes are so amazing, and I think it's that side by side. So, like, what's your favorite scene from the original? That's what I want to really ask you guys.
To me, the circle of life is the whole. It takes the whole movie to get the same feeling that you get just from that one number, and the colors and the cinematography and the music and it all working together. And when you try to do something that could stand side by side with that, you realize how complex it is. And we tried to figure out every species, every location, the lighting setups, and that part we really tried to emulate as much as we could. But that to me is a piece of, it's like the beginning of Up. There's a few things in movies where just it stands alone as just a wonderful thing, and that whole opening is just, to me, the movie's a great film just from there.
Can't Wait to Be King was like really influential to me as a kid, I think. Like I used to watch the like behind the scenes, and you'd see them singing it, and the colors and the dancing I just really loved as a kid. Like I just felt like this was weird, but it felt like a t-shirt or something. Whereas like with the color, it felt so like vibrant and cool that I don't know, I just really loved it as a child.
Yeah, the flowers is probably one of my first memories of like them jumping and them bursting like that. I just loved it. The other thing too, John, I know you mentioned that when you did Jungle Book, you had 6 or 10 iconic shots that you had to make sure you recreated. Yeah. And then this one, how many?
There were dozens of moments. It's not just shots, it's images, it's lines of dialogue, it's moments, it's, Scar hanging, like Mufasa hanging from his claws, the scar over him. That's not an easy thing to get a lion to do, to look like naturally, in the naturalism of this, or them sitting side by side in silhouette in a way that lions don't usually sit unless they're in front of a library. So, it was all Rafiki holding the baby up. Yeah. There's a lot of things that look good in 2D animation, but when you try to make it look real, you have to use tricks to get around it.
No, well, the tricks were great. And especially, like I said yesterday with your character, I felt this Simba's richer. I really loved that he struggled and he had different things to it. So going back to the original, though, was there something that you wanted to make sure you held on from the original that you wanted to keep in your Simba? And what was something you wanted to bring to this one?
I don't, like, it's funny, like I felt in the original, like when you see him later and he's older with Timon and Pumbaa, like even with the hair, they kind of made him like, I'm kind of a slacker, like kind of thing. Like he's like, it's whatever, kind of like surfer vibe, which is really cool to me. But John did a really good job of like the transition of the character throughout, which I really loved. Like just from the second I come on, like my voice is a little higher and it's kind of talking like that, and then slowly, and then by the time I meet my father through me, it's like, oh, I found me, like kind of, and I love that part of it. Like that was the one thing last night I was like, oh, like John did a really good job.
Because his
like,
voice changed.
He's
had these 3 years have been, life experience, professional experience, touring, just things change your voice, and he's also, a different, a different person.
I'm a dad now. I lost my dad while making this, so like I came back and redid some of the lines after that happened because I was like, oh, I get it more, So like it felt, it was very personal thing, so it felt really good to be able to do that.
I have my favorite scenes again. Like there's new ones in the new one that I love as a favorite scene. So what's your favorite scene from the original or from the new one?
The Circle of Life, it's such a crazy way to start a movie. Like I really was like marveling at it. I was like, it's so bold and it's such a big creative swing, which you don't generally ascribe to like $200 million movies, and so it's like it's the opening of the movie is just, and the way the title comes on after the song, it's like it's a real bold start to a movie and really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same for you.
Circle of Life gives me chills every time, whether it's this version, the old version, the Broadway version. It's just a great song on some level. To hear a great choir sing Circle of Life just is so effective, just makes you emotional right off the bat. And yeah, it is, when I think about it, it is kind of like this prologue to the movie. It kind of bookends the movie without actually being a part of the story, which is kind of rare nowadays. It's kind of old-fashioned.
It really is. It's like an overture
cool.
almost. Yeah,
Yes,
it's super fascinating.
And I think that was one of my favorite parts of the press conference, is watching that performance yesterday.
Oh, yeah, that was
It
amazing.
gives you chills.
Doesn't normally happen.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, our press conferences suck.
Exactly.
Like,
Stuber didn't have that.
Exactly. It's like, no wonder comedy's dead. This is what we're competing with? Exactly. Why did we make long shot toys?
Well, then, can we keep him?
Yes, of course we can keep him. My God, who is the brains of this operation?
We're gonna name him Fred.
You guys made these characters your own, and it's so difficult, I think, when you have the iconic originals, and I love them. I thought they were so amazing. But was there something in the original that you wanted to bring to your character, and also was there something you particularly wanted to bring to this one to say, okay, this is us? Because Fred, that's you. That's you.
A lot of it. A lot of that was. And I think the thing about the characters more than anything that I hope to maintain was like their relationship and like not the specifics of their dynamic necessarily, but just that like these two characters, like they're all each other have, and they really like love and care about each other and are like wildly comfortable with one another and not offended by one another, and they just kind of like get one another. And I think like that is like a super endearing thing to watch. And when they're constantly kind of bickering, it's just funny. But I think that more than anything was the thing that I hoped to maintain, was like their sweetness, you know?
Yeah, they are sweet.
For me, I grew up loving Nathan Lane, whose voice work in the original is truly iconic, and no one has ever forgotten it, and no one ever will. And so for me, I wanted to do my own spin on it, but I think what really works about Timon that Nathan created is to give him this larger-than-life personality coming out of this little adorable body, and I thought that was worth keeping that because it just works so well, and I think people want to see that.
Yeah, it's great. Did you get the letter from Nathan?
I did. I got an email from Nathan. I emailed him to ask for his blessing, and he emailed me back and was lovely and hilarious, as he always is.
Watch this.
You'll get it, Simba. Just takes time.
What's y'all's favorite scene from either the original or this reimagining?
Do you know what? It's all one beautiful, endless day to me. I can't say which scenes. I don't remember particular specific scenes from the original because I've seen the Broadway show, I've seen the touring company. So every time I see it, I go, oh, that's it. So they all seem like one performance to me, including this. Each one adds layers on to the last thing I've seen.
I like that. What about you? Do you have us pick one?
I mean, I think for both of them, I always respond to Simba returning home, and that just that sense of those kind of journeys and the journey of life, and just sort of either, just physically or psychologically, that idea of reconciling oneself to home in some way is part of all of our journeys, and how we do that is part of our lives and our completeness, so that always, sort of is an emotionally resonant moment for me.
Yeah, and I think with your two characters especially, they had a lot of more color and texture added to this version that they brought from the stage play and from just you guys' voices. But is there anything from the original that you wanted to bring over to your role? And was there something particular about this role that you were like, I want to make sure to add this extra texture?
Well, for me, again, one thing I was excited about is that we are ready. It wasn't that things were kept out of the first one, but we all grow. The societies grow, and also our needs grow. Some people say this one seems darker, but we live in darker times, so we recognize when you're an audience or a viewer, you are part of the equation. It depends on what you're bringing there. So there was a reality that I felt with this one that acknowledges our present reality and the dynamic between men and women. I love the fact that when he says, come and eat, be with me, and she says, I will never be your queen. It's not a put down of him, but it's that it is a recognition of a lioness. Her raison d'etre is not to be the queen, somebody's queen or attachment. So she says it as it's an impossibility. I will never be your queen.
I mean, that's not even shade. That's just the tea right there.
Exactly.
What about you?
The original had so much sort of this wonderful sort of psychological depth, and that Jeremy brought to Scar, and I just kind of wanted to do that. I mean, differently, but to really honor that, and honor that kind of approach to it, so really go into all of those places and really try and understand, to empathize, if not sympathize, with a character that does these terrible, despicable things, but is so rooted in why for themselves, they need to do that.
The way you brought Scar forward, though, for me, is that you say, you wanted people to be empathetic but not sympathetic, but I felt sympathetic for Scar. It was very apparent that he had wounds, and I saw him as a boy, as a cub. Yeah. I saw him, you still have to act right, but I knew that he was wounded, was what he was being that way.
Thank you, Alfred. He looked at me crazy yesterday when I said I felt for Scar.
You must take your place in the circle of life.